Taken from a real patient with a malunited fracture. So, though it can be used primarily in fresh fractures, in malunited fractures also you can do a close correction, like calotasis, put a particular ring, and on full ring goes here. That's all. And then we want to connect them with rods and get it to this position. That is our exercise. Here, you can either pass one single caver going through all four, or you can see the bow. You can see this bow. You can pass one caver from here, it emerges here, and one here, it emerges here, and these two can attach to the half. That's where it is. And Allah, palpate on the radial artery, and besides it, pass the wire. And pass 2 and 3. One wire goes like this. Then again, 3, 4, and 5. One wire goes like this, and you have a half. Ulna is subcutaneous all throughout. Palpate, palpate, palpate. At the correct level, hold this, pass through this. That wire goes through the entire surface and has to go through radius. The moment you feel the radial pulse, keep your thumb on the radial pulse. This is the most difficult part. And pass beside it. Feeling the pulsations of the radial pulse all the time. So you pass 4 wires.
We need to be aware of it, and which can be a real emergency. And it is found it out that if we do a CT scan of the lungs, it can very well differentiate between a patient going for a this fulminant type, where the mortality is reasonably high. It's more than 10%, vis-a-vis a conventional kind of a fat embolism, where we see with the mortality of 2%. So this is definition is best by a CT of the lungs in this situation. Another use of CT is now differentiating the classical fat embolism from the other differentials, which we look right now. It could be a pulmonary embolism, it could be pulmonary edema, thrombopulmonary this embolism, aspiration pneumonitis, or a pneumonia. These are all of Indian Orthopedic Association, and I do look for your support in this regard.
I request all of you to vote for Dr. in India and almost 7 outside. So give him a good big hand in electing as Vice President next year. Thank you.
By using the Elizero methodology. There is an announcement here.
The session in Hall B will be starting right now for those who wish to attend it.
Okay. So I won't be boring you with what is the definition of high energy trauma, what is low velocity trauma. We'll just be discussing a little bit about what are the main complications that we face in perspective of high energy trauma. You can't expect the car mechanic to manage these two injuries in the same manner. So the person who got injured by this accident also will be far more serious than this injury. Two things that we encounter in high velocity trauma are bone loss and soft tissue loss. There are multiple other problems that today's perspective will be discussing only these two. One is bone loss and the other is soft tissue loss. How do we manage them with Elizero methodology? Traumatic bone loss, it's a common problem that we encounter. It might be segmental fractures, it might be bone defects, bone lost at through the compound wound. When managed by conventional method, what happens is we have to do suboptimal fixation with gap, fixation with shortening, all that. Even when you do a very meticulous intra-articular reduction, but we are still left with a huge bone defect, how do we manage them? Is there any other option to circumvent this situation? You see here a shattered elbow. A very accurate reconstruction of the epimetaphyseal junction is done, but still what we are left with is a huge gap, and the journey is not complete. There's a long way to go. We won't get into the details of the classification systems. We all know compound fractures are a wide range of injuries, and there is a huge amount of soft tissue injury, bone injury, there is a associated neurovascular injury, and management varies accordingly. We all know, even when you follow the Elizero school of thought or the AO school of thought, the general management is the same. The initial irrigation, debridement, and the antibiotic cement beads or cement spacers, management of the dead space, followed by the appropriate soft tissue cover. Essentially, the principles are the same. So we have the antibiotic cement coated nails, cement beads, and they can even be sometimes used as a definitive treatment, as in this case. Then this follows the coverage of the wound with the help of skin grafts and flaps, local flaps, distant flaps, etc. In certain segmental fractures with such huge bone loss, if the patient is young and the bed is well vascularized and a single cleanable segment is there, there is a potential for replantation. But it is a very
talks given to Elizero. Thank you, Prasad sir, organizing team. I am going to talk about Elizero in intra-articular fracture around knee joint. Indications of fracture tibial plate 2 shared type 5 and type 6, all type of open fracture, crush injuries, and fracture around knee with compartment syndrome, and you can treat with floating injuries as well. Inventory used commonly, all rings, wires, nut, bolts. Technical important, very important, every intra-articular fracture needs accurate reduction. There should not be any depression in the tibial plate 2. So apply traction, use manual manipulation, elevation of depressed fragment, internal traction, that is traction between femoral ring and distal tibia ring. We use a Ollie wire, we can pull, push, and make arching opposite to tender zones. Span the knee for initial 4 weeks, For initial ring placement, we can do needle marking to avoid exposure. We can make frame, prefabricated frame to save time. Wire insertion is the most important part of the tibial plate to fixation. First make a frame, a fixed frame, and pass wire in femoral ring. And then pass wire in distal tibial ring. Reduce fracture, elevate depressed fragment, then pass wire in the fracture area. Adjust length and rotation before fixing wire to the distal ring. And try to reduce all fracture with minimum wire. Don't use wire in fracture area without reducing. Pass arching wire for posterior fragment. This is a safe zone.
How do you tackle the meniscus is entrapped in between the lateral meniscus is entrapped in a bicondylar tibial plateau fractures?
I do mini open at the side and then elevate the fracture fragment, then do bone graftings. In that case, we after doing CT scan, we do some open at that area, then elevate it and do bone graft.
But why do you choose this Elizaro? Just because you want to do Elizaro, or just what is it exactly? Because the whole world is for the metaphyseal fractures and complicated.
There are with so little complications. So rewards versus risk. The risks are 1/10 of plating. Rewards are 10 times plating. It's little discomfort for the patient. But if I have my tibial Schatzker 5 or 6, I would only get an Elizaro done, and that too from an expert. So I'm convinced.
Okay, Prakash, we agreed to disagree here. Okay, so don't confuse the delegates. That's a problem.
Thank you.
Yes. To present mementos to the chairpersons.
I'm sharing my experience of the tibial fractures of the metaphyseal areas where you have plating or nailing, and now as Prakash is so aggressive about Elizaro is also thing which we can, but I'm going to share my experience of nailing in extreme metaphyseal fractures. So why nail fails in metaphyseal fractures is a roomy metaphyseal area, a flask shape, usually an unstable fracture with big fragments, big muscle pull, the soft tissue problems, and reduction is a big problem. So what are the reduction methods? We must know exactly how to reduce the fracture. Nail is latter. The nail is not a reduction tool to reduce your fracture. That's very important. People try to put a nail and then try to reduce it and then they fail. But it is not the way. You have to reduce the first and then give rotational stability, and biologically you have to preserve the soft tissue. So in principles, you must ask few questions. Whether can I reduce this fracture? Is it nailable? Whether you are able to nail the where you have special nails to stabilize? Will it be stable after the nailing? Whether the soft tissues are okay? Whether the specific nails are available on table? Do I know the technique of proper nailing? And do I know the polar screw technique, if at all you want to use to reduce these fractures and maintain the reduction? So the IM nail must have multiple holes, multi-directional, multiplanar, and biomechanically stable nail. Reduction is usually closed, but you can, if it is not possible, don't burn your testicles by getting a lot of radiation. You can just go minimally open and reduce it. You must learn the technique of putting a polar screw. That's very important. You must use these femoral distractors, fracture table, guide wires, and various reduction tools, whichever you have on your table. You must use all these clamps and tools. So key factor with various devices, anatomic reduction. It takes little disadvantage, it takes little time for reduction because it is a lot of soft tissues. Anatomically may be difficult. The rotational views in IITV are very difficult to treat sometimes, as Srinivas has shown excellent way to do, how to see the x-rays and how to see the imaging. The sag of the shaft can be also a problematic for you and difficult in holding the reduction. Once you reduce it, it is extremely difficult to reduce the fracture. The x-ray you must take the other limb as well. If you have problem of bowing, as Dr. Ajmani was showing some cases of bowing of the tibia, so it will give you a lot of problems. So you must have CT and all other problem. So the proximal metaphyseal areas were difficult to get because these are the problems of deformity. So as the roomy canal, the metaphyseal area had tend to go into a deviation. So valgus, procurvatum deformity is very common. Angulation, the isthmus. So whether The difficulty to treat these fractures is unacceptable deformity because of the valgus and anterior angulation, high chance of getting into a malunion and even non-union because of the soft tissue interposition and malreduction. So how and why nailing fails is the Herzog bend. You have to choose the initial olden nail designs. The Herzog bend was very low, so there is a possibility of a deformity. Then it should be the
From nailing. The classical concept considers the double bone subforam as a joint and that allows rotation of the radius around the ulna rather than the two simple long bones. Therefore, to restore the radial bow, reconstitution of the normal architecture of the forearm and grip strength is most important in the management of the fracture both bone forearm, and it needs a perfect anatomical restoration and fixation. Currently, the main surgical methods are open reduction and internal fixation by plate or nail, hybrid combination, or nail only. Open reduction and internal fixation of both bone forearm fracture by plate, a perfect anatomical restoration and union, and it is well accepted method. Healing is 98% and 92% satisfactory to excellent functional outcome with the recent literature. Currently, the main surgical, this is how it is. Okay. So, the most accepted method is the internal fixation by plate and screws used all over the world with variable results, but there are some problems: soft tissue loss, infection, synostosis, non-union and refracture after the implant failures. So, in picture in India, dominance of AO, anatomical open reduction and internal fixation, plating everywhere.
Small token of appreciation to our guest faculty, Dr. Vasudev Gadgoni.
Nearing, and most of you have been sharing good greenhouse effect of various nailing techniques. Now I am going to show you the horrors of what you can face if you are an Ilizarov surgeon. This is the Sick Children Hospital statistics when they used a Wagner lengthening, 63 lengthening in the femur, 3.7 centimeters, tibia 3.3. There were 142 complications, with 60 are serious, and all the complications are enumerated. So if you see that the percentage of complication is more than 200%. Whereas if you are using an Ilizarov method, which publication was done in 1973, there were 237 femoral lengthening, and the average length was 7.4, age group 5 to 50, planned lengthening achieved in 233, and complication was very less. 12 patients had transient nerve palsy, hip intracsepsis, subluxation of hip in 2. So overall complications of lengthening was less in Ilizarov method than any other methods of lengthening. But there are a number of complications, number of problems which can ensue, which are shown in this diagram, and we will go one by one. Muscle contracture is very, very important, because if you are not really doing the physical therapy for the particular joint, for example, if you are doing it fixing the muscles, always there is a differential histogenesis between the bone not yield. So you can get very more amount of physical therapy to them. You can also splint them. If you want lengthening, you can give a right ankle splint at the foot and ankle so that the contracture can be minimized. Fixation of the foot along with the frame if you are going to lengthen more than 6 centimeters or a bifocal lengthening. If there is a contracture which is stretching, you can advocate muscle stretching exercises or application across the ring, across the joint, so that you can stretch the contracture, or tendon lengthening. If you do tendon lengthening, you are likely to have problems of losing one power. So you have to be very careful when you are doing it. Joint luxation is another problem. This is the lady who had an internal bone transport for a large gap in the tibia. she had a post-osteomyelitic sequelae, and in the bargain, the tibia sublux posteriorly. That is an X-ray which shows that there is a flexion deformity of the knee, and the tibia has sublux posteriorly. You can see that this has not yet really gone to full consolidation, but the transport is complete. If you draw the lines, your apex should be here. So at the apex, we have put the hinge. We have done the osteotomy at this level because there was a cross union. Once you bring
other techniques, but I follow a simple technique. I take a lateral parapatellar incision like this, parapatellar tendon incision, and I put the CM in lateral view while the leg is in hanging position, and I take the dagger up to the tip of the tibia, upper end of the tibia through the incision, and I'll enter there. Almost it is touching the anterior horn of the lateral meniscus, and you can see the entry point and the guide wire. You can see the guide wire entering into that, and then the nail passes into the distal segment, proximal segment, and then distal segment. And this is the reduction what you will get. Usually you will get a valgus deformity if you take a central or medial parapatellar tendon incision, you will get a valgus deformity. But this I could overcome by taking a lateral parapatellar tendon incision. And you can see that the fracture is reduced well, and it will go into its position. And if you get a procurvatum deformity or a not procurvatum deformity, if you get a translation of the proximal segment, usually that is anterior, I put a polar K-wire 2.5 to 3 mm. Where I put the polar K-wire, the distance, I calculate usually the distance from the anterior part of the upper segment to the anterior part of the proximal segment. So this is the distance, and I put the polar K-wire here from the posterior aspect with the same distance. Almost this is the distance, and here it is the same distance. And then the proximal segment is pulled posteriorly, and you will get a beautiful reduction without any anterior translation and deformity. And the same thing under CM, you can see this is the anterior translation, and I have selected the same distance from the posterior cortex, and then guide wire is there, and you can get a translation of the proximal segment. This is the technique which I follow, a simple technique, everybody can do it, and if necessary, then only I put a anteroposterior polar K-wire, and I remove after locking, I remove the K-wire also. You can see it in the CM image, but afterwards there is nothing. It goes for union. Thank you. Keeping the guide wire there itself, and then I push the nail again.
Dr. T.V. Rao garu, Rector, College.
Now I would like to request Dr. L. Prakash Garu to speak on PFO.
Just lunch. I hope that I managed to keep you awake. But even if you go off for a short nap, doesn't matter, because it's a new concept, still being studied, tried, worked on. We don't know if it's a flash in a pan. And symptomatic medial arthritis patients can vary from the one on the left to the one on the right. One on the left is a gynecologist whose only trouble was she was not able to stand for more than half an hour to do the surgery. And the other one on the opposite side is a Muslim lady who couldn't walk without a walker. As somebody said in the morning, the same nail doesn't fit all. For knee arthritis, the same solution doesn't fit all. In this scenario, my contribution is proximal fibular osteotomy, which was discovered by me accidentally during my stay in prison. Prison is a violent place, and the cops are given a stick to beat the prisoners, but they're given strict instructions: beat below the knee to cause least grievous harm. So they can't hit you on the head or chest. And below the knee, it comes from the lateral side and hits just around the head or neck of fibula. I was treating a lot of patients with osteoarthritis. Here you can see an X-ray. That's a man who was released after 14 years in prison. So his right knee. So, if you look at patients who have had fractures of fibula accidentally, even stress fractures, their medial joint surface is somehow protected. Observation number 1. If any pathology comes to the fibula, it lengthens the lateral column, collapsing the medial column. That's a 14-year-old boy with exostosis and very severe medial OA. Now, this was a gynecologist. I was advised TKR in one center, UKR in another center, my sister's classmate. And this is what I did for her. Took off 2 pieces of fibula, joint space opened up immediately. She had full flexion, walked stairs the same day, went home as a day case. And that's 2 years down the line. Though the joint space has again collapsed, she is totally asymptomatic and doesn't want another surgery. This was my own first case. This was my aunt who was admitted for a TKR. I had come from prison on a parole. Only painful part is skin, subcutaneous tissue and periosteum. So infiltrate the skin, subcutaneous tissue, subcuticular, using an insulin syringe. Use a deeper syringe, go right up to the periosteum, poke it and inject.
Persons. I'll be speaking on management of non-union following a nail without any infection. This case I have shown in the morning, a distal femoral nail went into non-union, and you can see the malalignment. What I did was just reduce the canal size in the wide metaphysis by palisade polar screws, did a nailing and bone grafting with plate. Plate gives absolute stability around the fracture site in a metaphyseal fracture. And this is at 4 weeks. Why it is not moving? Just at 9 months, you can see beautiful consolidation in this patient. And sorry for that. Patient walking as well as patient is able to squat and do a full function. So that is the end result in that patient. Without any support, you can see a properly done supracondylar nail. The patient will be able to do everything without the knee biometrics being altered. Another case, a fracture femur, bad entry site. I medialized the entry site with a polar pin, did a plating, bone grafting with a nail, and this is at 4 months time, and this is the function of the same patient at 4 months, beautifully consolidated. Another subtrochanteric fracture, failed initially, second surgery failed. In the same fashion, I have treated with plating, nailing and bone grafting, and it has united without any problem. So, I will be talking, after seeing these cases, I compiled a talk of non-union management. Non-union of the long bones with no infection with nail. Majority of them, the nail breaks as the fracture doesn't unite, and majority of the non-union is due to inadequate surgery or iatrogenic. So analyze the cause and try to prevent them. Thin nail, give mechanical stability. Open nailing done, biology is questionable, give graft. Fracture fixed in distraction, allow compression. Static locking or delayed dynamization, again, dynamize in time. Delayed weight bearing or non-weight bearing is also bad for fracture union. So majority of the cases, it's a combination of many. If stability is questionable, give mechanical supplementation. Biology is questionable, give biological supplement in the form of graft. If both of them are missing, you have to supplement both. A thin K nail treated with a close interlocking nailing, the fracture consolidates without any problem. Another thin nail, again stability it is requiring. Again interlocking nailing done, it consolidates. Here no distal locking was done. Second attempt was done to do grafting. In spite of that grafting, fracture didn't unite because of instability.